Welcome. Thank you for joining us at Empowering Creatives to Live Their Dreams. I'm Jessica Osrak. Today we have a Marine Corps veteran, founder of several multi-million dollar CPG brands, and currently Chief Growth Officer and founder of SmashBrand, the first data-driven brand development agency for CPGs, Kevin Smith. Welcome, Kevin.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jessica.
Yes, pleasure to have you on the podcast. So, I'd love to know from Marine Corps to entrepreneurial success, how did your experiences shape your approach to business and creativity?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. I think since a very young age, I was destined to be an entrepreneur and be out there selling golf balls on the golf course or having my own little businesses as a kid. And then decided to go into the Marine Corps, and that was still the best decision I ever made in life. That was kind of learn the principles of great leadership and teamwork and those kind of things. And I still think all my businesses are sort of grounded in that. They probably are tired of hearing me give like Marine Corps philosophy in our leadership or team meetings. And I think it's those two things that came together. Then once I got out and started my first business, I feel like I had a real head start. Like I already knew I really wanted to be an entrepreneur, be in charge of building my own thing, as well as then grounded in that leadership and discipline from the Marine Corps. It created the foundation for everything.
Wonderful. Yeah, it sounds like a great foundation. So, you've spearheaded ventures in e-commerce, retail, and now brand development. What's the common thread that drives your entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, there's one. And I think for me, I've learned this across, all the brands that we have, which were always product brands, three of those that were, very successful brands. And then newer to me was an agency where you're in the business of people and service. But it really is to break through into a market and to really have distinction and to grow quickly where some people really want your products and services. The, the hardest way to compete on is by trying to make something that's just better, right? A better soda, a better flavor, or in the agency, the same thing that everybody's doing, but we do it better because we have a different process or something. So for me, it was always about finding the true value with the customer. What are they looking for in an outcome and their jobs to be done? And then how can you deliver that radically different? And when you have the story of different, it's much easier to get people to try your product, whether that's something that you drink or that you eat or a household good or a service in your business. When you're radically different, you can kind of be a pirate in the category.
Hmm. Wonderful. So, different is better than better, right?
Different's
Different
better
is
than
better than
better.
better is a powerful philosophy. So, can you share how creatives can apply this mindset to stand out in the competitive markets?
Yeah, I think there's a few ways to it. The simplest way is it's not necessarily the most effective, right? You really want to look at your product offering, I think, and say, how can we deliver on the value that these clients need in a very different and unique way? It may be through cutting edge technologies with AI, where you're building your own IP, or there's a lot of different ways to do it out there, your own software, your own database, something that's proprietary to you that nobody else has that is going to be worth a whole lot. You can charge high dollar for those things. And then as you move down the chain in delivery, you get more into commoditized services. So that's like that's the gold mine right there, is that IP that only that you have, that the client really, really needs. The other way you can do it is simply through lexicon. And I think that's also really powerful. And the way that you talk about those things, because everybody says the same thing. They're saying things like process and if you just rename those and you reframe the way they talk about it, what you really want to have is your lexicon becomes the new norm in the category. And so when people
Mm.
start using your language and you've shifted their thought process to use your language as they're talking to other agencies, you've just won, you become distinctive in their mind. And then if you see the entire category shift the way that they talk to you, you've truly disrupted it. And that's the ultimate goal.
Hmm. And do you feel like you've accomplished that with Smash Brand?
100%. We're still young. We're still growing. And our big differentiator was we decided to, if we were going to have an agency, kind of use what we've learned in consumer goods, which is those largest CPG companies in the world. They invest lots of money in quantitative testing to make sure the product's actually going to win when they go out and market. Creative firms, they're based on lots of subjectivity, right? They're convincing the client this looks beautiful and it's awesome and they should put it in the market and take the risk because it's going to be great. So we remove that by building predictive testing systems that when we do that creative work, instead of being subjective, we can test it. And with 96% accuracy, we will actually know what that sales outcome is going to be for them. And there's no more risk in it. So that's very valuable because they can't get it anywhere else. And then with that, we've changed the way that we language the company. So all of those normal steps that you would go through with a creative agency. And so now what we're actually seeing as we get maybe RFPs or briefs from brands, they're now using our language in those. There's like a requirement. It'll be a requirement that you do have a internal testing methodology that does X, Y, and Z. And it's what we call it and nobody else does. And that's how I know that we're starting to have some disruption, but there's a long way to go.
Okay, great. So SmashBrand guarantees sale outcomes and unprecedented promise. So how do you balance creativity with data-driven strategies?
So that's a good question. I think that sometimes as we try to recruit and bring in really, really talented creatives, sometimes it's a miss, right? When they come in here, one of the things that we do is onboarding because testing and data and those analysts are so integrated in the process. We have to reframe the traditional way that those creatives are used to working. And sometimes that doesn't work out and it's not a fit. And that's difficult. The ones that have been here for a long, long time, they find it invaluable when you're working this way. So the way that we come the company up is in this pod where you've got somebody that's represented from the strategy group, from the insights or analyst group, and the creative group. They each get ownership, right? The strategist has ownership of the brief, the big hypothesis, the theory of what we have to hit. The creative group, they get complete ownership of actioning that brief. Now, the brief for us goes into really specific data testing metrics. And what the creative has to do is say, hey, I have this big, bold idea. I really want to move it forward. And I'm going to explain why it hits all of these. I'm sure it's going to hit all of these when it goes into testing. And they get to own that. And then when it goes into testing, we get to figure out the right and the wrong. But they each have very specific responsibilities because what we don't want to do is over-index on data and insights and not let them have those big ideas. They just have to be able to explain to us kind of at moment of brief of how they are hitting those. Even if we don't see it, it's okay. They can still make the call and bring it into testing.
Okay. So it's really about ownership, which I'm sure they appreciate.
Yeah, they get full accountability and ownership over that piece of their work. And then it'll happen where they've got a fantastic big idea. And then other people like on the strategy or data side are like, no, that's not going to work. And then it goes through and it's a great idea.
Great.
Without that ownership and accountability, like we would have a watered down product.
So it's trusting that who you're hiring is really good at what they do and that they know what they're doing.
These guys are experts. Like they've done this for so long. It's why would we not trust them? Yeah.
Right. So what role does consumer testing play in shaping the direction of a brand, and what lessons can smaller brands learn from this process?
In the world of the largest brands, right? They'll go out and hire, a great market research firm to really understand maybe their consumer segmentation and their audience, and they do all this, different types of research and testing. And then they'll go hire this, fantastic creative agency. And then at the very end of that, or maybe during it, they're also going to hire this quantitative testing partner to kind of start testing that work. And it's a very expensive process. Small brands typically today, they don't have access to that. They cannot spend that kind of money. And that's sort of what we try to solve for. I think that if you look at any of the data online that tracks brands right now, those big CPGs that follow a process like that, they've got about an 85% success rate. Small brands that go the traditional way of, I'm a hire creative, we're going to have some ideas and put it out in the market, they've got less than a 10% success rate. And that gets tracked by Nielsen. These small brands, there's so many ways that you can still sort of be consumer led. If I was talking to them right now, it would be do anything you can do to bring that consumer's voice into the project, even if, hey, I'm working with a smaller creative firm because that's my budget and that's okay, that's great. But hey, there's things like SurveyMonkey, right? Pollfish. There's these small little products where you can just spend a few $100s and start bringing their voice in. It'll make a dramatic difference to your product in the end. We learned that with our own consumer businesses where we had all the scars and receipts of market issues, failures in market, where we have to keep changing product, changing labels. And then once we started being a little bit consumer driven in very kind of rudimentary ways, like the trajectory of the brand changed almost overnight.
So consumers want to hear their own voice in the brand.
Very powerful, right? When you develop
Okay.
really what they want, not what you want them to want, uh,
Hmm.
it makes a complete difference in market.
Okay. So with AI and technology rapidly evolving, how do you see these tools transforming the way creatives and brands approach their work?
Yeah, I think a lot of ways. So our biggest investments right now are in AI, and of course, there's all the traditional ways of AI, which is going to be about. I don't like to think of it as replacing people. I think it is like an enhancer, right? Maybe your strategist being able to get through more data, or a typical job that a desk planner may do. Like they can get a lot of that bulk research done, to start building out their hypothesis strategy quicker, overall efficiencies within the agencies of running P&Ls and things like that. Those are going to be the easy wins. And then I think the big bold ideas that are out there where it'll benefit especially smaller agencies and smaller brands is the new emerging technology of synthetic data. And that's where if you are in the business of doing some kind of research or testing, it's very expensive today because you have to go out and hire these panels that bring recruits in to do research and testing, and you pay a lot of money for that. But right now, synthetic data, and it's working really well. You can basically have human clones where you would bring in, you know, 20 people instead of 1,000 from a panel, and the synthetic can get a read on that, and then synthetic data will make up the other 990 or 50 people, and it's just as accurate. And so it's gonna make this type of research or validation super accessible to everybody.
And probably a quicker turnaround, I would imagine, with feedback.
Takes minutes. We use fully synthetic eye tracking and like shelf sequence gazing right now. And what would normally take us, 4 or 5 days to field and analyze, it's about 15 seconds. And if we run real, human data against it, it matches equally. It's wild.
Wow, that is wild.
Yes.
So you mentioned scaling talent and onboarding as challenges. What advice do you have for creatives building teams in service-oriented industries?
So first, those are our biggest challenges. I would say that these are two pieces that we haven't figured out. Something that I found truly after having a service business, and I completely underestimated it myself, was how important onboarding is, right? And I think that was one of the most challenging pieces to scale in the beginning, is that we would hire fantastic people and we would just kind of throw them into the work. And then maybe frustration at the leadership level of like, why aren't we delivering? Why are things taking longer than they should, right? We're watching our margins go down. And it was our own fault. And so we do have a fantastic COO now that pointed that out quickly to us. And I think that was one of the biggest pieces for these roles, basically being able to have those experts that are sitting in those seats continuously help you refine what the accountability in the role looks like, and then that onboarding process. So as we do bring on people, they can actually get in there, understand everything from the tools to the workflow to frameworks that you're using really, really quickly and start being effective. And that was something I was terrible and failed at here, and it was a big inhibitor to growth. So super, super, super important.
And so you mentioned that it was a failure. Do you feel that you were able to take that failure and turn it into a positive?
Yeah, I think you can turn every failure into a positive. And for me, it was just sort of an eye-opening moment of, hold on, this is much different than a product business where I'm just going to go out and find another co-manufacturer when I need to increase scale. This is really about investing in staff and employee and even culture, honestly, and changing that mindset. So the positive from that is recognition of what we need to do different and better. And I can say that we're probably 70% there today. Like we're not 100%. But now when somebody comes on board and we talk with that employee 3 or 4 months later, they're not unhappy and dissatisfied that they've had to figure things out themselves. Like they've had the right people and team and culture around them that like get everything up to speed where they enjoy actually working in the business.
Yeah, and as an owner of a creative and marketing recruitment agency, I can appreciate the challenge of finding the right candidates, which we had talked about previously. We do have our Elysian framework to identify candidates in a shortened timeline, and we have a high success rate of filling 9 out of 10 jobs and a 90% success rate of that person lasting at least a year. But also that onboarding of investing the time and the energy to set that person up for success. Because, like you said, you can hire the most amazing person, but if you don't guide them into your business, then there still is going to be a struggle and frustration with the employee as well as those managers and people in the company. So I'm glad that you were able to turn that around. So, what's been the most significant lesson learned from nearly selling SmashBrand? And how can creatives align their long term visions with their team's goals?
So I think just talking as a business owner in the service business now, the biggest lesson that I have learned, and it would be kind of what I had mentioned in the beginning, is I truly believe in a service business today, especially that's something like ours. We are delivering on kind of, brand strategy, graphic component, copywriting, things that are probably going to be more compressed and commoditized over the years, and AI is going to affect all these things. The importance of owning true IP in your business. Like if there's a creative owner out there that's really like, hey, I want to build an exceptional firm, and eventually in the future, I want this to be purchased. I think I was reading a statistic the other day where 91% of agencies actually never get acquired, and they just eventually go away, right? And that's a high number. Like that is a crazy number for business. And I think a lot of people are just happy to have a great business and work in it, but there's usually the end goal of that acquisition. And I would challenge every creative business owner out there to think, how can I uniquely own IP that'll build a moat for you and be defensible and give you a really, really good multiple on your valuation? Because I think what we're going to see in the future is those valuations across agencies are actually going to go down on EBITDA as services become maybe a little bit more commoditized in the future. That's my biggest lesson, is that the IP and the differentiation is going to be so important in the future. And I think everybody can have it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's very valuable. So, what obstacles have you faced when integrating innovation into established industries? And how can creatives overcome resistance to change?
Yeah, I think there's always challenges for us. The biggest challenge, really, and this goes for any industry, is just awareness, right? I think you need to have at some level a marketing plan that gets you enough bats to have those conversations. And so that's always a challenge, is figuring out how are we going to reach our right idea client profile, our target market. That is always an ongoing challenge. But I always like to think of, when you're thinking of your agency or product or whatever it is, there was a thing from Steve Jobs a long time ago, and I think he has it right. And I think you'll know when you have like really, really good product market fit. And he used the example at his keynote presentation of a laser printer, right? And it's, that laser printer, you can talk about all the functions and the features, a great piece of hardware, like the CPU components and the memory and the RAM. Like, this is a fantastic box. But every other competitor out there making printers today, dot matrix printers, just talks about all the features in it. And it's not Apple. And when Apple makes a product, all I've got to do is actually just hold the paper. And when you see how it printed, you want to buy the heck out of that thing. Like, I don't need to even tell you what's in the box. And so for me, that product market fit is, if you build the awareness and you truly have that differentiation in your firm, that thing that nobody other can deliver on. I can clearly say that I do not have any competitors today. They're just going to want to buy it, and it's going to make the whole process so much easier of scaling your business.
That's great. Well, and you had mentioned that you're very big into refining and improving and refining and improving. And that's what's essentially gotten you to where you are today with SmashBrand. And it sounds like being in a place of your own where you don't have competitors is such a wonderful, valuable place. So I'm sure that you really appreciate that and your hard work. So, as a mentor to aspiring CPG entrepreneurs, what's the most common piece of advice you share about carving out a niche?
Consumer goods, super tough market. I'm not sure if there is a tougher market in the world, whereas the amount of competition to get distribution. And then once you get distribution and you're on the shelf, the shelf, then you have the second hurdle of consumers have to want to buy it. And it takes a lot of capital to actually now you have to have all this inventory and everything else to get on shelf. Very, very, very difficult market. Differentiation as a young brand is so key on there. And again, I'll kind of go back to the phrase of different is better than better. Let's say that, you and I are launching a cracker brand, right? And we go into that shelf set, we could launch cheese crackers and say, hey, these are better cheese crackers than the Ritz or what are the cheese ones? The
Cheez-Its?
Cheez-Its. They're better than Cheez-Its, right? And that's really, really hard to win on that value proposition. So what we really, really want to do is as a young CPG founder, you want to find two verticals of white space. This allows you to be what I call a category pirate. I think there's a gentleman named Yoon that created that word, and I love it, category pirate. And so what we want to look for is at the functional benefit ingredient level, somehow, how can we be wholly different than Cheez-It? And then at the brand level, the heart, the emotive level, right? This brand is worth it for me, like the product I wanted. And now the brand is worth it for me, the head and the heart, system one, system two. We want to have radical differentiation on those two things. And when those two things come together, you get to buy every single time. And so we look at you want two layers of differentiation, brand layer different, how you're showing up competitively in that set when they see you, and then your actual product itself. And those two things will give you the best chance for success and to be a true category pirate and create disruption in one of those sets.
Wonderful. So, how do you balance being a visionary with the operational demands of running a business? You had mentioned that you did bring in the COO. Would you say that that's your best approach to balancing those, or is there anything else?
That was my best approach. So I am definitely an idea and relationship person. I am not the most operationally focused.
Okay.
So like visionary is the title that I would say I'm most equipped to do as a founder. And I would say that before that, it was a little bit of a hot mess in here. And so by bringing in a partner that had strong operation capabilities, it changed the whole business. It's just never going to be a skill set that I have had in any of my companies. And I've always brought a kind of opposite of me partner in that's really great at operations and finance as a partner to run any of those businesses.
And so it sounds like it's very important in order for yourself and your business, if that's what the dream is to be successful, it's to recognize where your strengths are and then to hire to fill in those gaps rather than trying to do everything.
100%. I believe that. And then I think my just to kind of piggyback on that is once you figure that out, then the next step really, really should be how can you spend more time working on the business instead of in the business? And I see so many founders, whether it's CPGs or agencies, their days are spent doing the work. And that really then how can you staff as your revenue grows? You don't want to waste all your money on this, but as your revenue grows, now you know what your strengths are. And some of those strengths are really going to be out there, having the vision, creating the relationships, whatever things that are going to actually grow the business, not work in it, and getting out of that seat as quickly as possible. That is a big belief of mine.
And I've heard different things. E-Myth is one of my favorite Audible books.
Yes.
And so you're familiar too. So would you say doing the job and creating a process that works and then handing off is better than just hiring somebody to create a process for you? What would you prefer?
So I'm gonna maybe be a little bit provocative here. Let's say that I was coming into agency. I haven't done this before. And I say, hey, we now need a project manager.
Mhm.
I could try to define that and do project manager and then hire in for that role and onboard for that role. What I would personally prefer is to hire in my first hire, a complete expert that just knows how to do it. And they're going to help shape the business.
Mm.
And then after that, we can plug and play into that role. But I've hired somebody that was effectively able to basically be on this leadership component team to shape the role, to do it the right way instead of it being guesswork. And there'd be other areas in the company where I'm very, very comfortable shaping the role. And then I could do that and hire in. But if I do not know how to execute on that within the business, I'd want to hire in somebody first.
Okay, that makes
That's just me.
sense. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, for creatives aiming to lead their own teams, what's your advice for fostering alignment and accountability? You touched on accountability at the very beginning of this conversation.
Yeah, empowerment, accountability, ownership, those are very important. The way that we do it on our company, and I recommend it, it's a great system. It's free to use.
And thank you for joining my show, Empowering Creatives to Live Their Dreams. I'm Jessica Osrick. You can do it. I believe in you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us at Empowering Creatives to Live Their Dreams. I'm Jessica Osrick. Today we have a Marine Corps veteran, founder of several multi-million-dollar CPG brands, and currently Chief Growth Officer and founder of SmashBrand, the first data-driven brand development agency for CPGs, Kevin Smith. Welcome, Kevin. And thank you for joining my show, Empowering Creatives to Live Their Dreams. I'm Jessica Osrick. You can do it. I believe in you. And thank you for joining my show, Empowering Creatives to Live Their Dreams. I'm Jessica Osrick. You can do it. I believe in you.
And it's called EOS. So I'll give them a plug, Operating System. There's a book called Traction you can read to kind of hear about it. And it's
Okay.
just a way to structure your company from the overall organizational chart. They call it the accountability chart, to then how you hold your meetings and keep people accountable and do scorecards for employees. And it's a very simple way to run the business that really is all about delivery and accountability.
Wow. And it sounds like there's amazing free tools out there. It's just a matter of knowing about them all.
Yeah, it's all free. I think you can read that one book, Traction. There's another book called Rocket Fuel. And with those two and the tools on their website, you can self-implement it and be feeling really, really good about it. And then once you grow and you're huge, you can hire professionals to help you out. But it's good enough in the beginning like that.
Okay, great. So, what emerging trends do you see in retail and consumer goods, and how can creatives position themselves to capitalize on those emerging trends?
Yeah. So in retail, I think that the biggest emerging trend is going to be those younger markets, the Gen Zs, they're coming up, they're going to be a dominant, and you have to think about that. It really is about, I would say, two things. Sustainability is going to be important. People aren't quite paying for it yet, but it's coming soon. So as you're thinking as a creative about the types of materials that you're using, the inks that you're using, the like everything from the strategy of the company, it is something that's driving more and more purchase, and it's becoming a corporate initiative. And I think creatives can win on that today because everybody wants to hear it. Consumers aren't quite all the way paying for, they're not going to pay an extra $1.50 now for, a bar of soap that is more sustainable. They're just not quite there, but it's close and the companies want it. So I think as creatives can win big out there. And as we're talking to brands, if they really have expertise around how they can look, feel, talk about sustainability to the consumer, because it is important.
Mhm. And so, how should creatives approach AI to augment rather than replace their work and ideas?
Go all in. I feel like if you're a creative and you're not using AI at some level, it's going to be a problem soon. And I think there's a million ways to do it. It depends on your role in the company, whether that you're, a creative that spans into the more strategic work. And today
Okay.
you can very much use it like a desk planner in your pocket that's doing kind of all this capturing of research and statistics and everything that you need to put together like a really solid strategy. And then through creative, right? Today, even as you're like, hey, we're going to work through brand identity, you can build, what your framework of maybe a mood board or a brand board looks like today. And there's a lot of great tools out there where you can help it, right? Like we have some custom work that we do in the back end of Midjourney where we can feed it our tools and now prompt it, and it'll give us 200 ideas. And it's more like a screener. So it's not replacing that work, because then our creatives will go, oh, that one's actually interesting. Now I'm just going to sort of recreate that in my own way. But the brainstorming from it, we're getting hundreds of ideas, like these junior creatives giving us hundreds of ideas in a matter of minutes instead of them spending time. So it's really making them more efficient with more ideas. And then if you think about innovation, maybe, hey, what is the next product for this client? What kind of substrate should it look like? Again, you can have it rapidly give you hundreds or thousands of ideas in a matter of minutes, and you just are able to screen those down to enhance and make like your own time more efficient. I mean, it is crazy today, and we probably like our creatives, 20% of their time is now specifically using AI, but never to replace them, just to make what they do much faster, like their own workflow faster.
Hmm. And I would hope that people are using it to be more productive in less amount of time, but not be also so productive that they're just filling up more of their time, but being able to use that time to go enjoy life.
Yes.
That's been something that we've been talking about. And in addition to recruitment, I am a certified life mastery consultant and certified dream builder coach. And one of the common desires for creatives and professionals to have is more time to go and enjoy life. And so hopefully AI can help us do that.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
So, for creatives listening today, what's one actionable step they can take to align their passions with market opportunities and start building their dreams?
Yeah, whenever I'm speaking with creatives, and I still have a small business, right? It's not huge. Like we do really well, but it's also not the next big agency yet. I hope it is soon. And so take what I say with a grain of salt, of course. But I think as I speak with younger creatives, it's understanding what that passion is first. Like, are you somebody who loves doing the work? Are you somebody that really wants to elevate out of that and grow a business? And then I think you understand what that next person or partner that you need to bring on looks like. That's important to understand that. And then as you move on, and maybe now you've hit your first million or more in your really small business, really thinking about the vertical that you're playing in and how you're positioned within that vertical. I'm a big believer in kind of niching down and not being a generalist firm. That allows you to charge more and be a lot more attractive to your ideal client. So getting really clear on who your ICP is, like your ideal client profile, and
Mhm.
then narrowing your business around what are those jobs to be done that they really need. And then the kind of ultimate piece is now, okay, you're growing again, you're beyond 5 million or 10 million, still a small business, but you're growing. And that really is that investment in that IP and differentiator to then get you that exit that's much more valuable. But I think you can be thinking about that end in the beginning, right? That's your whole journey, and really be thinking at the end for where I'm going to narrow down to eventually, like, what is it that I can create that's unique and ownable for me? And if you sort of figure that out in your business plan in the beginning and just start executing against it, good luck to your competition.
Sounds powerful. And I imagine that being able to execute against that plan, it's really about aligning every decision within your business against that plan. That's probably also what you mean when you're saying execute against that plan.
100%. And if I was to go back to EOS, what they have is once a year you revisit it. You have a 1, 3, and we use the 1, 3, and 5 year goal. And it's very short, right? You just
Mhm.
what are the main goals to hit? And that's where you outline your overall vision, those goals, and how you're going to execute against them. And your whole year now, what you're working towards is breaking those down and actually hitting those. And when you do that and you have the accountability against it, by the time you get to that 5th year, you'll have done it. You'll have done it and you'll be winning.
Nice. Well, thank you for participating in my show, Kevin. I'd love to have you on my show again for us to hear more about Smash Brand and your continued success.
Thanks, Jessica. Really appreciate it.
And thank you for joining my show, Empowering Creatives to Live Their Dreams. I'm Jessica Osrick. You can do it. I believe in you.